uncanny calm. The wormhole's exit looms before us, a circular window to another place, another reality. The colors fade, leaving behind a view of space that is both familiar and utterly foreign. The sense of elongation, the stretching of my body recedes. I'm left with a tingling sensation. It's a physical memory of having traversed a boundary not meant to be crossed. As I emerge from the wormhole's embrace, the ship steadies itself, sensors recalibrating to the new environment. The stars outside are in positions that make no sense, constellations unfamiliar and uncharted. It's a clear sign that I've arrived somewhere wholly different, a mirror dimension where the rules I know might not apply. As the ship stabilizes in its new orbit, I'm confronted with a sight that is at once hauntingly familiar and deeply unsettling. Below me sprawls Earth, but not as I know it. The vibrant blues and greens that should paint the planet's surface are gone, replaced by an ominous palette of darkness and desolation. The oceans, vast and sprawling, reflect a deep, inky blackness, like pools of oil sparkling under a dim, obscured sun. They're still lacking the dynamic swirl of clouds and weather systems that I'm used to seeing from space. It's as if the lifeblood of the planet has turned dark and stagnant. The land masses are no less disconcerting. Shades of grey and muted browns dominate, with none of the lush vibrancy of vegetation or the twinkling of city lights. It's a barren, lifeless tableau that stretches from coast to ghostly coast. Forests, mountains, and rivers are all there, but they're like faded memories of the earth I know, drained of colour and vitality. I scan for signs of life, for the familiar glow of human civilization, but there's nothing. No cities sparkling in the night, no highways lined with the movement of vehicles. It's as if humanity has never touched this place, or worse, as if it had been erased entirely. The silence from the comm system is deafening. I send out hails, standard greetings, and emergency broadcasts, but there's no response. Just a hissing static that fills the cabin, a soundtrack to the desolation outside. The isolation is complete, a solitary existence in orbit around a world that is Earth in shape alone.
It's your anniversary today. You could have arrived empty-handed, but you exist in a world where it's easy to get flowers.
This is in orbit around a world that is Earth in shape alone. This mirror Earth is a puzzle. It's familiar in its geography, but everything else is wrong, skewed. It's like looking into a mirror, expecting to see your own reflection, but finding someone else staring back at you. The unease that creeps up my spine is perceivable, a physical manifestation of the wrongness of it all. I know I must go down there, must investigate this dark mirror of our world. But as I prepare for descent, I can't shake the feeling of dread that clings to me, a premonition of horrors yet to be discovered. This Earth, so like and unlike my own, holds secrets in its silence, secrets that I'm about to uncover. The descent is a silent glide through the alien atmosphere of this mirror Earth. My ship, a lone speck against the vast canvas of grey, descends toward a sprawling, barren field. The landing gear deploys with a mechanical whir, the only sound in an otherwise silent world. With a final, gentle jolt, the ship touches down, stirring a cloud of ash and dust that quickly settles back to the lifeless ground. Exiting the craft, I'm immediately struck by the oppressive atmosphere. The air is stale, like the breath of an ancient tomb long sealed from the world. It's a struggle to fill my lungs. Each breath is a laborious draw against a reluctant environment. The stillness is absolute. There's no breeze to stir the air, no rustle of leaves or distant calls of wildlife. Even the sound of my own movement seems muffled, as if absorbed by the dense atmosphere. The sky above is a perpetual twilight, a dimming light that offers no warmth, only a pervasive gloom. The sun, hidden behind a veil of unending dusk, casts weak, diffused light that barely penetrates the gloom. It's a monochrome world, drained of vibrancy, a canvas of shadows and fading light. As I step onto the surface, the gravity asserts itself with a heavy hand. It's stronger than Earth's, a relentless pull that makes every movement feel labored. My muscles strain against the increased weight. The silence is overwhelming, a weight on my ears and mind. It's the kind of quiet that amplifies the smallest noise, turning the simple act of breathing into a thunderous event. The lack of sound feels unnatural, an absence that sets my nerves on edge. Surveying the barren landscape, I see fields that stretch to the horizon, devoid of life or colour. The ground is covered in a layer of dust and ash, as if the earth itself has been burned and left to smoulder. There are no signs of civilization, no roads or buildings, only the endless expanse of desolation. I take a tentative step forward, leaving a deep footprint in the soft, ashen soil. With each step, I'm acutely aware of the solitude that envelops me. It's a world abandoned, or perhaps never inhabited, a place where the rules I've known no longer apply. As I venture further from the ship, the sense of isolation grows. It's a tangible force pressing in on me from all sides. After traversing the desolate landscape for what feels like hours, the silhouette of a city materializes on the horizon. As I approach, the details become clearer. Towering buildings, streets, bridges, all mirroring the architecture of Earth. But there's a crucial element missing: life. The city is a ghostly shell, an urban expanse devoid of its most vital component. Skyscrapers stand like silent sentinels, their glass windows reflecting the dim light of the obscured sun. They loom over the streets, imposing yet hollow. There's no movement inside, no signs of occupation. It's as if the inhabitants vanished, leaving behind a concrete and steel mausoleum. The streets tell the same story. Cars are parked or abandoned in lanes, their colours faded, coated in a layer of the same ashen dust that blankets the landscape. Doors are ajar, interiors exposed yet untouched, like still life exhibits in a museum of the everyday. Traffic lights dangle lifelessly, their purpose rendered obsolete in this silent city. Compelled by curiosity, I enter one of the buildings, pushing open a door that resists slightly, its hinges complaining in the silence. Dust motes dance in the slivers of light that penetrate the gloom, highlighting the absence of human presence. The silence in the building is absolute, a suffocating void that amplifies the sound of my own footsteps. Each step raises a puff of dust. The walls are faded, peeling, bearing witness to the relentless march of time in a place forgotten by the world. A sense of waiting pervades the atmosphere, a tension like the breath before a storm. The feeling of being observed creeps over me, a prickle at the back of my neck, an instinctive response to unseen eyes. I move cautiously through the building, past empty offices with desks littered with the detritus of a bygone daily grind. Coffee mugs, framed photos faded by the sun, papers scattered and yellowed. The personal touches intensify the sense of loss, the abrupt abandonment of normalcy. The deeper I venture, the stronger the sensation of being observed becomes. I pause, listening intently, but there's no sound to validate my unease. Yet, the feeling persists, an unshakable certainty that I am not alone in this desolate urban labyrinth. Exiting the building, the sensation follows me, an unseen presence that hovers just at the edge of perception. I scan the streets, the windows, the shadowy alleys, but there's no one, nothing to justify the creeping dread that tightens its grip on me. As I navigate the desolate streets, a brief motion catches my attention. It's subtle, a mere wisp at the edge of my vision. I snap my head towards it, but there's nothing there. Just the empty street and the silent facades of buildings. The brief sighting sets my heart racing. It's the first sign of movement I've encountered since arriving in this desolate world. I strain my eyes, scanning the area, but the street remains empty, the quiet undisturbed. Doubt creeps in, the logical part of my mind suggesting it was just a trick of the light or my imagination running wild in this unsettling environment. I decide to leave the building, stepping back into the open street. The air feels heavier outside. It's an oppressive feeling, one that raises the hairs on the back of my neck. I can almost sense eyes on me, tracking my movements from unseen vantage points. As I walk, I keep a vigilant watch on my surroundings. The abandoned cars, the darkened windows of buildings, the narrow alleys that branch off the main road. All potential hiding places for whoever or whatever is observing me. The city feels like a maze designed to disorient and confuse, its layout familiar yet foreign enough to keep me on edge. Every so often I catch another glimpse of something, a shadow that seems to move against the stillness of its surroundings. But each time I turn to look, I'm met with nothingness. The fleeting nature of these sightings only adds to the growing unease. It's as if something is deliberately staying just out of sight. A predator stalking its prey. The rhythm of my footsteps bounces off the buildings, a lonely sound in the peaceful city. I quicken my pace, eager to put distance between myself and the unnerving sensation of being followed. Yet the faster I walk, the more pronounced the feeling becomes. I stop suddenly, listening intently. Silence greets me, but it's a silence filled with anticipation. The sensation of being followed is now a tangible presence, a weight on my shoulders that makes me wary of every shadow and every sound. The logical part of my brain tells me I'm alone, that it's impossible for anything else to be here. But the primal, instinctive part of me knows better. There's something in this city with me, something lurking just out of sight, existing in the periphery of my vision. The realization hits me. The shadow is not just a passive observer. It's actively pursuing me. Panic surges through my veins, a potent mix of adrenaline and fear, compelling me to run. I sprint through the streets, my boots pounding against the cracked pavement. The air, heavy and thick, resists my every breath, but fear propels me forward. The shadow is a relentless pursuer. I can sense its presence close behind me, a constant pressure at the edge of my awareness. It's fast, unnervingly so. A fleeting glimpse in my peripheral vision confirms it. A darker patch of blackness against the grey backdrop of the city, moving with unnatural speed and fluidity. The city becomes a blur as I navigate its streets. My mind races as fast as my legs, trying to plot a course, to find some advantage in this nightmarish chase.
Kroger Delivery brings fresh groceries to your door, even without a store nearby.
This nightmarish chase. The buildings tower over me, their windows like dead eyes that observe my flight with cold indifference. I don't dare look back. The urge is there, a primal instinct to see my pursuer, but I suppress it. To look back would be to acknowledge my fear fully, to give it power. Instead, I focus on what lies ahead, on finding some semblance of refuge in this desolate urban jungle. The shadow's movements are silent. There's no sound of footsteps, no labored breathing, nothing to suggest a living, physical entity. It's as if it's a part of the city itself, a manifestation of the desolation and despair that clings to every building and street corner. I make a sharp turn down a narrower street, hoping to lose my pursuer in the maze of the city. The buildings here loom even closer together, their shadows merging into a near-constant twilight. My heart pounds in my chest, a drumbeat that matches my frantic pace. But the shadow adapts quickly, its pursuit undeterred by the change in terrain. I can feel it drawing closer, an oppressive force that seems to feed on my fear. The streets become a winding path of survival, each turn and twist a desperate bid to escape. My lungs burn with the effort and my muscles scream in protest, but the terror that drives me is relentless. It's a primal dance of predator and prey, played out on the desolate stage of this alien city. I realize with a sinking feeling that I cannot outrun this entity. It's an integral part of this world, as much as the air I struggle to breathe and the ground beneath my feet. I push my body to its limits, but fatigue is setting in. muscles burning with the exertion. In my frantic escape, I fail to notice a jagged piece of debris lying in my path. My foot catches on it, and I stumble, the ground rushing up to meet me. I hit the pavement hard, the impact jarring my bones and knocking the wind out of me. Dazed, I roll over, pushing myself up, and that's when I see it. The shadow. It stands before me, no longer an elusive pursuer, but a tangible entity. For a moment, I'm frozen. My fear a tangible thing that roots me to the spot. The entity is vaguely human in shape, but there's something profoundly wrong about it. Its form is nebulous, edges blurring and shifting as if it's not entirely present in this reality. Its skin is a pallid grey, the colour of ash, stretched tight over a skeletal frame. But it's the eyes that truly haunt me. Empty, hollow sockets that seem to stare into my very soul. It leans closer, and I'm struck by the absolute absence of sound it makes. Even now, mere feet from me, it moves in utter silence, a living void. Then it whispers, a sound like the rustling of dry leaves. The language is unfamiliar, guttural and clicking, resonating with a chilling cadence. I can't understand the words, but their effect is undeniable. The being exudes a sense of surrealness, a creature from another reality. I scramble backwards, trying to put distance between myself and this apparition, but my back hits a wall. Trapped, I can only watch as it extends a hand towards me, the fingers long and thin, ending in sharp, shadowy tips. In this moment, fear transcends into terror. The realization that I am utterly alone in this encounter. The rules of science, the laws of nature as I know them, offer no solace or explanation for what stands before me. The entity's movements are slow, deliberate, as if it's savoring the moment. There's an intelligence in its actions, a purpose that I can't comprehend. I'm left with a sense of profound vulnerability, an intruder in a world where I do not belong, at the mercy of forces beyond my control. As the shadow looms over me, its form ever shifting, I brace myself for what comes next, caught between the primal urge to flee and the paralyzing grip of the unknown. More of its kind begin to materialize from the surrounding darkness. They emerge from the alleyways and behind the desolate buildings, a silent procession of nightmarish figures. Each one is a distorted echo of the first, their forms human-like but twisted, their movements fluid yet unnerving. They encircle me, a ring of malevolence that closes in with deliberate slowness. I feel the panic rise in my throat, a primal response to being hunted, outnumbered, and overwhelmed. Suddenly they move in. Their hands, if they can be called hands, reach out for me. The touch of their fingers is like ice, a cold that seeps through my suit and into my skin, chilling me to the bone. They grip me firmly, their strength surprising, leaving me no chance to resist. I'm dragged to my feet and pulled through the streets. The city passes by in a blur, a monochrome landscape of shadows and despair. Their grip is unyielding, their pace steady. I try to struggle to break free, but it's futile. I'm completely overpowered. The streets twist and turn, a maze that confounds my sense of direction. The oppressive silence of the city is now accompanied by the soft, whispering sounds of my